In the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, there are technically no rules as to what cards you can put in a deck, as long as said cards aren't banned or restricted in any way, and as long as you adhere to the minimum of 40 cards and the maximum of 60 cards. But to actually see some wins, you'll need a cohesive strategy. That's where the archetype comes in. But some archetypes, whether that be intentional, like with a bunch of modern ones, or unintentional, like the more rogue or jank decks that I absolutely love playing, just happen to have great synergy. And since I enjoy these more, let's say, unconventional strategies, at least in today's meta, I'd like to share my 5 favorite decks that just so happen to mostly be multiple archetypes in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! At number 5 is the Counter Fairy deck. Now, the Counter Fairy deck is a deck that focuses on using counter trap cards and fairy type monsters. Pretty self-explanatory. This deck aims to disrupt the opponent's plays by negating their actions with said counter traps, while the fairy monsters provide support and synergy with these traps. Counter fairy decks, especially back in its heyday, revolve around cards like Bountiful Artemis to draw cards and gain advantage, as well as Sanctuary in the Sky to mainly protect your life points and gain extra effects with some of the monsters. I love this deck so much for a couple of reasons. One, like a lot of decks on this list, is that I played this older Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game on my Xbox 360 called Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's Decade Duels, and one of the decks that the AI played was indeed Counter Fairy. The other main reason is that I just love counter traps. They can only be responded to by other counter traps, so they're hard to deal with a lot of the time. Paired with some monsters that go well with this mechanic, it really tickled Dylan's pickle back in the 2010s. More modern cards were released that helped out with this strategy, like the Pendulum card guiding Ariadne, but nothing was solid enough to have it enter the meta. Here's an example of a more modern version of Counter Fairies from yugiohprodeck.com, so you can possibly try it out for yourself. At number 4 is Fish OTK. The Fish OTK deck is a strategy centered around the monster Fishborg Blaster and other fish-type monsters, including Super Ancient Deep Sea King Coelacanth, to achieve what is known as a one-turn kill, or OTK. The objective is to quickly summon Fishborg Blaster and the fish monsters using Coelacanth, enabling you to repeatedly summon Fishborg, which can lead to summoning high-level synchro monsters like Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. By utilizing this combo, the Fish OTK deck aims to deal a massive amount of damage to the opponent in a single turn, often winning with one decisive attack. Now, I've always loved the water attribute in Yu-Gi-Oh!, which you'll see in another deck on this list, so in combination with it being another Decade Duels AI deck, it's the perfect storm to make it into my top 5 of all time. Now that I think about it, a lot of my favorite decks come from Edison format. What is Edison format, you may ask if not familiar with the history of the game? Well, according to edisonformat.com, Edison format gets its name from the only Shonen Jump championship to take place during this time period, the 75th SJC in Edison, New Jersey, which occurred April 24th to 25th of 2010. This event marked the end of an era because it was the final and highest attended SJC with 2,175 participants. From then on, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series YCS would replace the SJCs. It's a format beloved by the older player base, maybe even more than GOAT format. Anyway, this deck just blows me away with the broken-ass cards like Fishborg Blaster, whose effect is not even a soft once per turn, to a beast of a boss monster in Super Ancient Deep Sea King Coelacanth, which is one of my favorite main deck monsters of all time. There really is no modern version of the deck for 2 reasons. One is that one of the integral cards, Fishborg Blaster, is super banned, but also the Edison player base really wants to preserve the original spirit of the deck. Here's a list I found yet again on yugiohprodeck.com if you're ever playing in an Edison format tournament. And at our number 3 spot is Paleo Frog. The Paleo Frog deck is a strategy that combines Paleozoic trap cards and frog/toad monsters, which are mainly level 2 and aqua type. It revolves around controlling the field by using traps like Paleozoic Canadia and Paleozoic Dinomicious to disrupt the opponent's plays. These trap cards can be activated from the graveyard as well to summon themselves as monsters that are all unaffected by monster effects and are all level 2 and aqua type, which just adds to their versatility. Frog monsters, including Swap Frog and Ronin Totem, provide bountiful material for summoning powerful extra deck monsters like Totally Awesome, which can further disrupt the opponent and even recover resources. The Paleo Frog deck excels in maintaining board control, stalling the game, and gaining incremental advantages over time. Wow, Dylan, 2 water-based decks in the same list. Hey! Shut up. Now, a contender for one of my favorite XZ's monsters of all time, totally awesome, is some of the best negation a single card can have. In the right deck, it's pretty much ban-worthy, like in Sprite. The OCG and Master Duel have, in fact, banned Toad as of writing this script. So sadly, I can't play this guy in my Paleo Frog deck I made in Master Duel. The reason I love this deck so much is not only that I love the water attribute, like I mentioned already, but it's such a simple deck that can f***ing pop off and really get some wins for you. Ronin Totem is such a busted ass card in this deck and is actually banned in the TCG because of Sprite abusing its not soft once per turn effect. As far as meta relevancy goes, this deck is the closest to it so far. If you ever play in a non-tournament setting, since a few of these cards are just banned depending on where you play them, I found this list for you on YGO Pro Deck. Our number 2 spot is Mau Banish. The Mau Banish deck is a pretty unique strategy that relies on banishing cards from your own deck, hand, and or graveyard to power up said Grenmaju.Isa, a monster with its attack and defense based on the number of your banished cards times 400. By banishing a significant number of cards, usually through cards like Dimensional Fisher and Macrocosmos, Grenmaju can become a massive beat stick with many thousands of attack points. The deck often includes cards to protect Grenmaju and maintain consistency, allowing for explosive attacks and OTKs. It's a high-risk, high-reward deck that depends on careful resource management and banishing mechanics to secure victories. Holy sh**, do I love this deck. The highs of going off on a banishing spree while already having Grenmaju.Isa at your disposal, just knowing you're going to kill your opponent in one fell swoop, coupled with the extreme lows of either bricking or accidentally banishing your entire deck without being able to OTK, is a dichotomy that I just live for when playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Plus, this deck usually includes one of my favorite monsters called Necroface, which has a couple of effects, one of them being when it's banished, both you and your opponent banish 5 cards from the top of your deck, which may incidentally trigger another copy of Necroface, which may trigger your 3rd copy, really getting things going if you already have Grenmaju in hand at the ready to kill your opponent. Its other effect isn't as relevant, but it can get you a beefy stat line if it's normal summoned while a ton of cards are banished, but more importantly, it stops you from decking out. I always thought the concept of gaining some type of advantage from removing cards from play was very fun and interesting, since way back in the olden days of Yu-Gi-Oh!, banished cards essentially were gone for good. Here's a list I found on YGO Pro Deck if y'all want to try it out for yourselves. And at the number 1 spot, we have Danger Dark World. The Danger Dark World deck combines 2 archetypes, Danger and Dark World, to create a powerful and disruptive strategy. The Danger monsters, like Danger Nessie and Danger Bigfoot, have effects that trigger when discarded, adding an element of unpredictability to the deck. Dark World monsters such as Grapha, Dragon Lord of Dark World, benefit from being discarded and can be special summoned from the graveyard. The deck aims to create immense advantage for you with the Danger monsters effect to draw a card if special summoned by their shared effect from the hand, as well as using some Dark World effects, none of which are usually once per turn to do various things like drawing cards, searching cards, ripping cards from your opponent's hand, and special summoning from the graveyard. This synergy creates a strategy that can rapidly deplete the opponent's hand, as well as make super large end boards that, if going first, sets up tons of negates, and if going second, can lead to an OTK, making it a formidable and aggressive deck. It's really nutty how much damn advantage you can get with this deck, with how many cards you can draw from your deck, as well as the amount of special summons you can get in one turn. Putting up impressive end boards is not only laughably easy, but is extremely fun. The Danger monster's effects in hand can technically be negated by Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, but since it's not once per turn, you can just do it again. And since all of these cards are dark attribute, the support for them is immeasurable, like usually not busted cards like the Beginning of the End, which in this deck is just a better pot of greed, allowing you to draw 3 cards. Powerful link monsters like Saryuja Scaldread if you need more cards in your hand or need just one more special summon to make a combo go off, or Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess to set up first turn negates are easy to set up. One other really cheesy thing I used to do in Master Duel before it was banned was if I was going first, I would try to at least get Appaloosa on the field while continuing to draw until I got Cyberstein, rest in peace buddy. Using Stein's effect, I'd bring out Naturia Exterio. So my end board would have both a multiple monster negate in Appaloosa and a pretty much infinite spell and trap negate in Exterio. Many of my opponents would just scoop when they saw that they basically couldn't do anything on their turn. It sucks that I now have to rely on Waking the Dragon to cheat out Exterio now that Cyberstein is banned in Master Duel. Here's a list I found on YGO Pro Deck that isn't my ideal list since it's so versatile on what you can build, but it has the same spirit. That's all for now, folks. If you made it this far, I'd like to thank you so much. Make sure to like the video, subscribe if you're new here to become a scrub-scriber, and comment down below what your favorite decks are. And also, I know I've been gone a while, and I'm really glad to be back. Maybe not on a regular basis, but at least better than I have been. And I will see you guys in the next video.